Ladies and gentlemen, the globalist media machine is activating against us as we speak. I'm Gary Franchi. This is the Next News Network, one of the last bastions of truth in this information war. Now, President Trump just signed an executive order to save Christian farmers from South Africa who are being slaughtered in their homes. And the mainstream dinosaur media is already spinning their disgusting lies. They're screaming racism when these are legitimate refugees fleeing brutal persecution. It's sick. It's twisted. It's like they want these people to die because it doesn't fit their narrative. The same media that cries crocodile tears over their preferred refugee groups is actually mocking the suffering of these farmers because they don't fit the globalist agenda. Now, just as humanitarian crises can bring unexpected pain to millions, chronic pain can create a personal crisis in your life. But here is what the medical establishment doesn't want you to know. There is a revolutionary turmeric discovery that's changing everything. Dr. Josh's breakthrough formula is 200 times more powerful than regular turmeric, and it's helping people reclaim their lives from debilitating pain. The same elites trying to hide the truth about global crises don't want you knowing about this solution. So visit goldenrevive.com/NNN to discover the truth about pain relief that they have been hiding. Now, let's get straight into where Thomas McCullough, he's at the White House with the breaking details on how these South African refugees are being welcomed to American soil. Tom, take it away.
Hey guys, this is Tom McCullough reporting from the White House with the Next News Network. And guys, we got a story that's lighting up X and showing President Trump's America First heart. So South African farmers fleeing violence are landing on U.S. soil as refugees. These are hardworking people caught in a dangerous mess back home. And Trump, he's rolling out the red carpet to save them. Let's go ahead and get into it. So on Monday, 59 South African farmers touched down at Dulles Airport on a U.S. chartered plane. Trump's team fast-tracked their refugee status, saying they're escaping brutal attacks. But South Africa's leaders are denying any persecution. They claim a new law, which lets their government take land without paying to fix past imbalances, isn't targeting anyone. Still, some Americans are cheering for these refugees, saying they deserve a new start. Here's what's being said. Let's go ahead and check this out.
The White House says white South Africans are under a, quote, government-sponsored race-based discrimination over a law it claims allows racially motivated seizures of land. But South African leaders strongly deny the allegations. The South African government says Afrikaners, who are descendants of Dutch settlers, benefit the most economically. While they make up only 7% of the population, they also occupy most of the farmland. The new law in question gives the South African government permission to take land without compensation in certain cases to address disparities to black South Africans as a result of the apartheid era. Again, we are supposed to hear from...
These farmers, mostly Afrikaners, have been growing food for generations, but now they're facing deadly threats, farm attacks that leave their families terrified. One post laid it bare. These are skilled workers, people who know how to farm, yet they're dealing with slaughter, often with their own government turning a blind eye. Trump standing with them, and let's go ahead and check that take out.
Folks, the media is absolutely melting down over President Trump's refugee program for South Africans fleeing what many have called white genocide. This idea that the Expropriation Act of 2024 in South Africa and the ongoing mass killings of white South African farmers, many of whom who have lived on the land for 400 years. Keep in mind, 400 years. This part of South Africa did not exist as a cultured land, as arable land, prior to their arrival 400 years ago. And yet, when President Trump has offered, by the way, this status has only come in for a couple of dozen people, the media is losing their minds. And so the first group of them came to Washington, D.C. yesterday, and incredible scenes where, when's the last time, by the way, you saw refugees coming from somewhere who were flying the American flag, who were waving it, who were saying that they were happy to come here, saying that they were happy to be here. You know, this is something where, by the way, over 67,000 South Africans have expressed interest in this. Of course, Stephen Miller, Elon Musk have talked about it, and the welcome at Dulles International Airport yesterday has gone viral. By the way, these are competent workers, people who know how to grow food, who are, by the way, actually facing direct death, slaughter, brutal killing at the hands of forces backed by their own government. And yet, for some reason, the media is upset at President Trump for allowing them to come in. Well, folks, all I have to say is real refugees, welcome.
Now picture this, these farmers starting fresh in America. Trump's already got them headed to states like Idaho and Texas where their skills can shine. One bold idea on X says we should give them land bought up by big shots like Bill Gates and even China. Then why not let these farmers who've proven they can grow food take over and thrive? It's a plan, and it might be fantastic, and people are buzzing about it. So here's the idea. Check this out.
And we are excited to welcome you here to our country where we think you will bloom, and we will hopefully allow you to have fulfilling lives for your children, and then we will bloom and we will benefit alongside you. So thank you very much for coming here.
Yeah. I'd like to add, again, on behalf of President Trump, Secretary Noem, we're just so grateful that you guys are here.
South Africa's president is fuming, calling Trump's move unfair. He's pushing for talks next week, but Trump's not budging. Deputy Secretary of State Christopher Landau welcomed these farmers, saying they're ready to grow in America. And that's what this is about, giving good people a shot, not bowing to foreign leaders who won't protect their own. Trump's proving he is the leader we need, putting American values first. And guys, that's the story for now. Hey guys,
Thanks,
this is Tom McCullough.
for that powerful report from the White House. It's incredible to see these refugees finally finding safety on American soil after facing such persecution. Now let's dive deeper into what these South African farmers have actually experienced. Let's start by hearing directly from someone who has firsthand experience of the situation in South Africa. Now, I want you to hear the raw truth from someone who's lived through this hell. This isn't some State Department report. This is real life for these people. Listen.
In South Africa, if you're white, you have a target on your back, whether you live on a farm or whether you live in the suburbs. In 2011, they brutally and savagely murdered my wife's grandfather. They did not ask where he was born. He was born in Austria. However, when they saw the color of his skin, they did not ask where he was from. They savagely tortured him, strangled him, burnt him, and then murdered him. Before they did this, they also raped his wife in front of him to death. Yes, several men raped her to death. So living in South Africa is not for the faint-hearted. The ANC government goes out and continuously calls for the killing of the white minority. Now, not only the white men are suffering, but the women. There is basically no women's rights. Every 3 minutes a woman is in South Africa. Countless infants below the age of 2 years old are on cultural beliefs in South Africa. Animals that get stolen or hacked to death alive. The cattle industry is also suffering because these guys go out and butcher animals while they're alive just to get meat and to fearmonger the farmers on their farms. Before they attack a house in the suburbs, they go and they poison the dogs, putting the dogs through absolute misery and pain. It is tear-jerking to think what is going on in my home country. And here I live in America as a refugee, and I've got safety and pleasures of life that my fellow South Africans cannot fathom.
Did you hear that? Torture, murder. And the mainstream media has the audacity to question whether these people are real refugees. It's demonic and it's evil. I mean, they're literally cheering for genocide because it doesn't fit their political agenda. Now, these monsters in the media would celebrate if all these farmers were wiped off the face of the earth. Okay? And here come the propagandists, right on cue. Watch how they immediately activate their mind control programming. Not one word about the documented violence, just straight to the rehearsed talking points. Watch.
You know, I think it's important for us to understand that the Trump administration is a lot of things, but one thing it certainly is a white nationalist project. And oftentimes we don't want to describe it as such. I'm not reducing it to it because there's greed, there's graft, there's all sorts of things happening around it, but we need to understand the way in which great replacement theory is driving this. There's a sense in which the immigration policy is all about demographic shifts. There's a sense around the assault on voting rights and civil rights. It's all about who will have the decision-making power to determine who will run the country. And here, this idea that the republic must remain a white nation is evidenced in this move, which is so explicit that it cannot be denied. And so when we don't describe it for what it is, we become in an ironic way, complicit in what they're doing. It's a white nationalist agenda, it seems to me.
And there it is. The big lie. The white nationalist project. Great replacement theory. These are psychological warfare terms designed to shut down your critical thinking. They don't want you asking why these people qualify as refugees under international law. They don't want you to see the actual violence happening to real human beings. It's all deflection and distraction. Classic CIA Mockingbird media tactics. Now, watch as they outright lie about the violence. These people are worse than Baghdad Bob. They are spitting on the graves of the dead. Watch.
As you mentioned, it's taking places away from refugees who are really being crushed by authoritarian governments and military governments. For these folks who have never had anything happen to them. I mean, Trump amazingly called it a genocide, one of the worst lies I've ever heard him say. There's just been a small handful of farmers that have been killed over the past 10 years. No land has actually been expropriated. So it's just a farce and a sham and a moral ugliness.
What happens now that he's taken this step?
I don't know. I mean, it's like a Batman movie or something where all the bad guys get collected under one roof. I mean, like, who else do you now go and find other racists who have repressed people and give them refugee status here? It's just, I don't know where it goes from here. But I mean, you even said it. It's like a headline from The Onion. I don't even know how to get more extreme than this.
Never had anything happen to them? Small handful? This is beyond propaganda and is actively covering up atrocities. We've just heard firsthand testimony of torture and murder and unspeakable acts. Now, there are stacks of reports of deaths of farmers being butchered in their homes. But these folks with their teleprompters, they want you to believe it's all made up. They're laughing at the suffering of these families, and it's disgusting. Now, here's Stephen Crowder telling the truth about what's happening to these farmers.
These white farmers, for those who don't know, because some clips coming here may not make sense, they're referred to as Boers, B-O-E-R-S. Boer. Boer. They're constantly. Boer. They've been attacked, murdered. Their land has been destroyed with no protection from the government. So I know some of you are going to say, hasn't this been going on for a while? No, there have been murderous mobs who have faced no consequences from the government. But now it's codified into law where the government will be the murderous, tyrannical mob stealing your land.
And by the way, the guys, you can check me on this, but I think they're not allowed to own firearms as well to be able to protect themselves. I think that was one of the big kind of controversies. That there were, roaming groups of marauders killing white farmers indiscriminately, and they couldn't defend themselves.
An anti-gun law in Africa is funny to me.
It kind of is. It almost, I mean, an anti, like machete law may be the only thing that's funnier, but
Well, here's what's not funny. We couldn't even, the CIA couldn't even help undergird or fund a coup. Because in Africa, you have a murderous tyrant like Ramaphosa, and then the primary opposition is a would-be murderous communist. So you either get a fascist racist tyrant, or you get a fascist racist communist. So Julius Malema, he's the leader of the primary opposition party there, the Economic Freedom Fighters Party, a Marxist party. They're not a ruling party, but they're incredibly influential. They have a lot of popular support. And so the alternative to the government policy of seizing land of white people, of erasing any history that involves white people in that country, the alternative to that is this Malema character, who I don't like very much the more I learn about him, who is routinely called for blatant violence against, specifically, white people.
So that's the key, folks. This isn't just random crime. It's state-sanctioned persecution. The government is enabling it and now writing it into law. That's the textbook definition of what creates refugees. But the corporate-controlled media won't tell you that because they are running interference for a communist takeover in South Africa. They're testing their tactics there before bringing them here. This is the blueprint. And you want to know the smoking gun? Listen to the South African political leader Julius Malema in his own words. Watch.
We are not calling for the slaughter of white people, at least for now. That means at some future date, we may call for the slaughter of white people. Is that correct?
Let's deal with that at that future date. I don't know what's going to happen.
So you're saying you are not ruling out that in the future you may very well call for the slaughter of white people.
It may not be me.
Could it be you?
It could be me, yes, but it may not be me.
Yeah, so it could be you. You could, at some future date, call for the slaughter of white people.
Shoot to kill! Hamaza! Kill the poor! The farmer! Kill the poor! The farmer! Brr, pa! Pa!
Unbelievable. Not calling for the slaughter, at least for now, right? This is a major political leader saying this on camera. If anyone else in any other country said this about any other group, the United Nations would be scrambling emergency sessions. There would be sanctions. There would be military intervention. But because it doesn't fit the globalist narrative, the media ignores it or simply downplays it. This is literally incitement to genocide happening in real time. Listen to more from this maniac.
Must never be scared to kill. A revolution demands that at some point there must be killing, because the killing is part of a revolutionary act.
I don't know what's going to happen in the future. I'm saying to you, we have not called for the killing of white people, at least for now. I can't guarantee the future.
Yeah, but I mean, you'd understand somebody watching that, especially as it gets shared on Twitter, they freak out. It sounds like a genocidal call.
Cry babies. Cry babies.
I'm not calling for the slaughter of white people, at least for now.
I can't give you a guarantee of the future, especially when things are going the way they are.
Subtext.
Especially if things are going the way they are, there will be a revolution in this country, I can tell you now.
Never be scared to kill? Revolution demands killing? This is open calls for violence from a man with 44 seats in the parliament. This isn't some guy in a street corner. This is a powerful political figure with a militia at his disposal. Under any definition of refugee law, when political leaders are calling for your death, you qualify for asylum. But the corporate media is too busy defending their precious narrative to acknowledge reality. Let's hear more about what these refugees are actually facing. The details are going to shock you to your core. Watch.
You know, being a house owner in America, I actually own a house that hasn't got a 10-foot fence around it, which feels weird. And nothing seems to be changing in South Africa because the government doesn't want it to change. They want the white man to suffer. They want the white woman to suffer. They want the children to suffer. They are killing the language. They are killing the people. And what they are standing for is ungodly and unethical and immoral. And I honestly believe that Cyril Ramaphosa, Julius Malema, and the ANC will be held accountable and need to appear in front of a jury on accounts of crimes against humanity and against the white minority in South Africa.
Women and children being targeted, unspeakable things happening to infants, the government continuously calling for killing. This is hell on earth. And the soulless schools and the corporate media are questioning whether these people are real refugees. It's beyond sick. If this was happening to any other group, there would be unanimous global condemnation, but because it doesn't fit their political agenda, they're willing to sacrifice these families on the altar of their ideology. So here's the legal proof that these are legitimate refugees. The government is stripping them of their property through discriminatory laws. Watch.
First of all, I want to talk about South Africa, the Afrikaners, so you guys are understanding the context of these refugees coming into our country and the genocide that is indeed occurring. So the South African government recently introduced a land expropriation law that enables the government to seize ethnic minority Afrikaners' agricultural property without any kind of compensation. Just take their land because they happen to be Afrikaners. This is, of course, in the context of Afrikaners for years having their land and jobs stolen from them thanks to communist wealth redistribution policies, often resulting in Afrikaner squatter camps. These people are often living in abject poverty. And I haven't even mentioned the countless Afrikaners, particularly the farmers, who have become victims of some of the most gruesome murders documented in modern history. Scalding water poured into their ears to maximize pain before death. hacked apart with machetes, blowtorched to death, hung from trees or beams in their own homes. It's not just taking the farmers' land, taking what these race Marxists believe is theirs, but it is literally torturing them because of such a deep and intense racial hatred that has been allowed to manifest, sanctioned by political leaders in South Africa. Like I said, this is actively encouraged by the leadership in that country.
This is communism in action, folks. First, they target a minority group, then they seize their property, then they turn a blind eye when the mob commits violence. It's the same playbook from Mao's China, from Stalin's Russia, from Pol Pot's Cambodia, and it's coming here if we don't stand up to it. Now, these aren't just farmers. They are canaries in the coal mine warning us about what's coming for all of us if we don't resist this global communist takeover. Now, take a look at CNN's shameless lies. Watch.
So if you think about the history of South Africa, it being under an apartheid system, where I think it is 80% of the population that are Black Africans only own 4% of the land. That is because they were put in shanty towns and moved into areas where they had no rights. And so 30 plus years ago, they went through the apartheid system ended, and they reformed their constitution under the great leader of Nelson Mandela. And that allowed for a racial reconciliation, one that this country has yet to do. But South Africa did it, and they reformed their constitution, and part of that is that the people who are native to that land deserve their rightful land back. That is not what the Afrikaners actually want to have happen, which are the white Africans, and so who are not originally from Africa, who colonized South Africa also. And so that is what they are saying is discrimination. Now, if the Constitution in South Africa is discriminatory, they have their checks and balances in that land, just like we do. And that is for them to, so if the Afrikaners don't actually like the land, they can leave that country.
They are. They're leaving to come here.
No. They can
These refugees are coming here.
They can actually leave and go to where their native land is, which is probably Germany.
Are you against them coming here?
Holland, probably. Holland.
Are you
yes.
against them coming here?
I'm against the hypocrisy of this administration.
No, that's not the question. The question is, are you against them coming here?
If there was actually a genocide happening, like there is in other places in Sudan, in the Congo, I'm not opposed for Congolese and for the Sudanese to come to Africa, just like I'm not opposed to Venezuelans and South Americans coming to America if they are fleeing and looking for asylum. What I am
just
against,
these 50 people you're against.
I am against, it's not about being against them. What I am against is that they are being given special treatment when there is not a genocide happening in South Africa, and they just don't like the law of the land.
Well,
so you know what they tell
people?
Not a genocide. Don't like the law of the land. This is Orwellian doublespeak. When the law of the land is targeting you for elimination, that is the definition of genocide. The United Nations Genocide Convention specifically includes, quote, deliberately inflicting on the group's conditions of life calculated to bring about its physical destruction, end quote. That's exactly what's happening. CNN is actively participating in genocide denial. They're complicit, and they have the blood on their hands. And get this, an Obama official admits these refugees weren't responsible for apartheid, but still blames them for it. Listen.
Trump has virtually halted refugee admission in America for people fleeing war and famine in places like Sudan and the Democratic Republic of Congo. Back with Rick, Mark, and Eddie. Rick Stengel.
Yes, it's so deeply and morally wrong-headed and repulsive. These are the descendants of the people who created the most diabolical system of white supremacy in human history, apartheid. They're not directly responsible for it, but it was a system that actually moved black people off of the arable land. So they inherited the land that the black people had to give up. It was called forced removal. It was something called a Bantustan policy, where they moved black people out of the cities and farmlands into these remote areas with non-arable land. I mean, it was just one of the most worst processes ever. But what has happened in this strange, bizarre world we're living in is that the Afrikaners have become the darling of these right-wing white supremacist movements around the world, that it's like it's like the lost cause for them. It's like the old Confederacy. They're held up as these white Christians who are being dispossessed of their land. It's like this is a modern replacement theory in a country where, by the way, white people make up 7% of the population and own 78% of the farmland. So it's actually, there's no injustice here.
He admits they're not directly responsible for apartheid, then immediately condemns them for it anyway. This is ancestral guilt. It's biblical condemnation, visiting the sins of the fathers upon the sons. Since when does refugee law consider that your grandparents did? It doesn't. This is demonic thinking designed to justify letting people die because of who their ancestors were. These people would bring back human sacrifice if they could get away with it. Watch. Meanwhile, the Trump administration is focusing on saving lives and welcoming refugees as they should. Watch.
And we are excited to welcome you here to our country where we think you will bloom, and we will hopefully allow you to have fulfilling lives for your children, and then we will bloom and we will benefit alongside you. So thank you very much for coming here.
Yeah. I'd like to add, again, on behalf of President Trump, Secretary Noem, we're just so grateful that you guys are here.
So this is what America stands for, giving people a second chance after they've faced prosecution. There is no racial agenda here, just the basic human decency that made this country great. And the Trump administration is applying refugee law exactly as written. But the globalist media can't stand it because it doesn't fit their divide and conquer strategy. They need racial conflict to advance their control grid. Ladies and gentlemen, what we're in the middle of is an information war. The same media that cheers for certain refugee groups is condemning these South African farmers to die because it doesn't fit their political narrative. They don't care about legal standards or documented persecution or human lives. What they do care about is controlling what you think. And President Trump is doing what any decent human being would do, offering protection to people facing brutal violence and government persecution. It's not about race. It's about basic humanity. But the globalist control freaks, they can't allow that narrative because it would show that Trump is doing the right thing. The truth is breaking through their wall of lies, and people are waking up to the media's manipulation. They're seeing that the same standards should apply to all refugees regardless of who they are, and that terrifies the power structure because of their divide and conquer strategy is falling apart. This is bigger than just South Africa. This is about the global agenda to rewrite reality itself. So stand strong. Spread the truth. The information war is accelerating, and we are winning. And share your insights in the comments below. Your perspective on these critical developments, they really matter. And remember to head over to the Next News shop and gear up with some Patriot gear and support our work at the Next News Network.